there everyone, it's March, we're at Lord's, in case you couldn't tell from the backdrop. Sid, what are we doing here?
Well, we've been attending the launch of a new educational resource launched by Cricket for Girls with Lydia Greenway, and Raf, you've been talking to Lydia all about it.
Lydia, you've just launched this exciting new educational resource. Would you like to tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we've been working on for the last sort of 12 to 18 months, and we've been working with a lot of teachers, schools, clubs and coaches just to ask them really, what is it that you need to help deliver an effective girls cricket programme. So we've put together an online resource which has a full scheme of work. It has supporting lesson plans, it has supporting videos, and it has all the things that schools have been asking us. So, you know, how do you umpire a pairs cricket match, how do you score a pairs cricket match, fielding positions, all that sort of stuff. So we're launching it today, and it's going to be released on Monday the 15th of April for schools and clubs to buy.
And this is available for all schools?
Yeah, all schools. So that was our big thing really, is we don't want to just make it available just to some schools. We actually want independent schools, state schools to be able to buy it, because I think one thing we do know is that bringing in an external coach or having a full-time specialist is really expensive. So we think it's important that schools have access to something which gives them support all year round. So hopefully that's what this resource will do for them.
Okay, and we're really seeing a growth in girls cricket, aren't we? Are you hoping that this will contribute to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, the biggest thing is the shift from rounders to cricket in schools. Rounders has been taken off the curriculum at GCSE level, so now schools are turning to cricket for their main striking and fielding game for the summer. So with that comes its own challenges, because PE teachers are now finding themselves in a position where they're being asked to coach and deliver a sport that they've never really had any exposure to. So this resource is purely just to try and make it as simple as possible, and most importantly make it enjoyable for the pupils.
Thanks very much, Lydia. Thanks so much for that, Lydia. Cricket for Girls is a brilliant organisation doing fantastic work, and this is a great new resource. We'd really recommend that you check it out. So now, switching focus, Sid, England could really have done with Lydia Greenway in their middle order out in India recently, couldn't they? Not had the best start to their winter with the 1-2 loss in the ODI series.
Yeah, they had quite a difficult time, I think. They went out to India and played 3 ODIs and 3 T20s, and we're going to talk about the ODIs first, I think. I have to say that we only watched the full match of the last 2. We watched highlights of the first one and watched the full match of the last 2. And overall, England, they won the last one, lost the first 2, and they weren't really very good, I don't think. India weren't great either. I think that England were pretty poor, and they were pretty poor because their batting failed quite badly in both the first ODIs, Raf.
Yeah, absolutely. They did really seem to struggle out there. And the interesting thing is that they then went on and won all 3 of the T20s, didn't they? In a format in which India seemed to really struggle. So, you know, what's going on?
Well, yeah, what a contrast. There are some performances where you look at them and you go, that's almost the perfect performance. Going back a few years, I remember when India came here and they played a test at Wormsley, and India won that test, and England were quite stung by that, and they went up to Scarborough, and we saw them play 2 ODIs there, and in the first of those ODIs, England and Heather Knight and Charlotte Edwards in particular batted absolutely magnificently. It was one of the best batting performances I've ever seen. And it was just like, this is how cricket is meant to be played. And England's performance in the first 2020 out in India kind of reflected that. You looked at that and went, that's almost the perfect performance. That performance would have won any match. You know, India maybe, you know, 2020 wise aren't the greatest side there. They were missing Harmanpreet, which didn't help. But England's performance in that first match, in particular the way they batted, was just exquisite. It was wonderful cricket, and it was fantastic to watch. And I'm sure that the players and Mark Robinson will be thinking, if you know, that shows what we can do if we can play like that in the World 2020 next year. If we can play like that in the final out in Australia, then we can definitely win that competition.
Yeah, absolutely. It just is a bit of a contrast with the way that they batted in the 50 over series, and I guess they are reigning champions in that format. Is it that I suppose they went out with that stated aim to win their first ever ODI series in India. They didn't manage to achieve that. They were coming off the off season. They've been training in nets at Loughborough, whereas India had just come fresh from playing international cricket. So was that the case, or is there something, is there deeper concerns that we need to worry about?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I think that obviously there is different mindsets playing ODI cricket to playing 2020 cricket, and I think that England's the kind of relentless positivity that we saw in that first 2020, if you take that into the ODIs a little bit too much, you sort of worry about, I shouldn't be playing ODI cricket like this, and they're obviously being encouraged to treat ODI cricket a bit more like 2020, but then the players themselves maybe seem a bit nervous about it. But it's really quite difficult to know sometimes. You just look at it and you go, they played so well in that first 2020, why couldn't they just apply themselves in that way in the first ODI, and they'd have racked up a lot more runs. I think obviously they are different pitches, slightly different conditions, but they were still very different performances. I don't think that you can entirely blame the pitches and things for the difference in the performances.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see where Mark Robinson goes with things this summer in the Women's Ashes particularly. What will the middle order look like? You've got a little bit of a battle going on for places, haven't you, in terms of Danny Wyatt trying to nail down her place in the middle order in the ODI side. She obviously had a brilliant third ODI out there in India and made her first ever ODI 50, I believe it was. You've obviously got Georgia Elwys as well, who also batted really well in that last ODI, very mature innings, and finished not out, really helped get England over the line, because they only just scraped over the line in that game, didn't they?
It's easy to forget that game was actually quite close as well, yes. Lauren Winfield as well has put in some solid performances. She hasn't made any of the really big scores that she might have been hoping to.
But what's interesting is that she's batting at 3, isn't she? Yeah,
so they batted her at 3 in the final ODI, and she's carried on there in Sri Lanka. And I think we're going to move on to talk about Sri Lanka, where England have kind of completely flattened the Sri Lankans, really. Perhaps the worst thing from England's perspective is that a lot of the players haven't really had a chance to do anything. Players like Fran Wilson have been, kind of spare parts, unfortunately, because England have been so dominant, and the Sri Lankans haven't been able to take the wickets that the Indians took, and England just steamrolled them, haven't they?
Yeah, they absolutely have. So the third match was just played this morning, so they've won all 3 by a huge margin. And perhaps that's what we would be expecting. But I do think that it's going to have given Amy Jones great confidence at the top of the order, so that's really important, because I think that Robbo does see Amy Jones and Tammy Beaumont as his opening pair now in 50 over cricket, doesn't he? So they'll be the ones that are opening come the summer. So great for Amy Jones. But is it really a bit pointless, Sid? England playing Sri Lanka and just walking all over them?
Well, I think that perhaps it is an argument that from England's perspective it's pointless, but pointless, absolutely not. I think that it's really important from Sri Lanka's perspective to be playing these matches. We've gone on and on over the last couple of years about how Ireland need to be brought into the fold. They need to be playing these matches too. They need to be brought into the Women's International Championship. That's going to happen during the next cycle, so Ireland will be playing in there as well. These matches are what Sri Lanka need, because they need cricket, and if it wasn't for these Women's International Championship matches, there'd probably be nothing there. There probably would be no cricket for them. So they've been flattened by England this time, but there'll be matches throughout the next 3 or 4 years where Sri Lanka do better. Bringing in teams like Ireland and Bangladesh will obviously give the likes of Sri Lanka and Pakistan more winnable matches. I think over the longer term, perhaps we're going to be looking ideally at perhaps 2 divisions of 8 in the Women's International Championship. But in the short term, there's not the depth internationally to pursue that. So I think it's absolutely right that Sri Lanka are in there, and it's absolutely right that we're bringing in Ireland and Bangladesh, and that everyone's going to be playing everyone else, and we'll get those younger nations, if you like, some more top-level cricket, and they will get better. They will improve.
And what about the selections in this series? Because it does seem a little bit odd that we haven't seen any of Freya Davies, which we were obviously hoping to see. Instead, Catherine Brunt, who wasn't supposed to be there, was actually selected for the first match, then obviously appears to have tweaked her back. But to have selected her at all seems a bit strange when they're supposed to be very carefully managing her workload.
Yeah, so obviously it's going to be a tough one for Freya Davis. I think she would have been hoping to play in those ODIs, but hopefully she'll get a chance in the 2020s to, actually get that first cap under her belt, because I think that's really important. I guess the other side of that is that Kate Cross has come in and done reasonably well. She's from looking at the scorecards, she seems to have done okay, and I think that Mark Robinson definitely seems to be thinking about Kate Cross as an option for the summer, for the Women's Ashes. She's kind of England's red ball specialist, if you like, so I think there's a good chance that we'll see her in the Test. So there's some positives in there as well, and unfortunately someone does have to miss out. But hopefully Davis gets a chance to show what she can do in the 2020s, which are coming up in the next couple of weeks.
And lastly, you may have noticed on the site recently we've been running a series of pieces about the ECB's plans for the restructure of women's county cricket from 2020. Syd, how are you feeling about that, and I guess particularly as a long-standing Berkshire fan, about the fact that your county probably won't be putting out a senior women's team as of 2020?
It's a difficult one. You spoke to Heather about this. You asked her a question on the media day when we were there at Loughborough before they went to India, and Heather said it was kind of bittersweet, and I buy into that. I think that I understand that things need to change. I understand that things need to move on, but it is a pity that Berkshire, from a fan's perspective, that Berkshire will no longer be competing. Does anyone really care about that apart from me? Well, probably not very many, to be fair.
Quite a few of the Berkshire players probably do.
Yeah, and I think that's the bigger issue. It's not just the fact that Berkshire are going to be kind of consigned to a sort of second tier permanently, but the real worry is what happens to those players if, as it looks at the moment, there is no more senior cricket for the likes of Berkshire. So the way that they're talking about organising it at the moment is that counties like Berkshire will continue to have a girls' pathway, but that pathway will end at 17, 18, and that from that point there will be no Berkshire team. There'll be no senior Berkshire team. There'll be no minor counties championship or anything like that, and that will be a pity if we end up losing that completely.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that some of the stuff that we've published has reflected that. The eastern counties are saying that they're going to carry on with county cricket, whatever the ECB say. Perhaps we'll be seeing more moves towards that in other counties, in other areas of the country, but it does seem a shame if potentially players are leaving cricket when really what we want is to be increasing the player base. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. We'll obviously be bringing you all the news and a big preview of the season, so look out for that, but bye for now.
Bye.